My son sold their house and handed $620,000 to his wife, every cent of it gone in less than a year. And when the money vanished, they came to live with me. It was a Saturday morning when the knock came. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, the one with a crack running down the handle that I refused to throw away. Through the window, I saw my son's car in the driveway, trunk overflowing with suitcases, boxes, and a child's tricycle strapped awkwardly to the roof. When I opened the door, Daniel stood there with his wife, Claire, and their 2 children. He smiled, but it wasn't the smile I remember from his childhood. It was tight, forced, the kind you wear when you know you're asking for more than you should. "Mom," he said, "we need to stay here for a while." Claire stepped forward, her designer handbag slung over one shoulder, sunglasses perched on her head though it was cloudy outside. "Just until we get back on our feet," she added quickly, as if she'd rehearsed the line. I looked past them at the mountain of luggage. "How long is a while?" I asked. Daniel glanced at Claire before answering. "A few months. Maybe less." I didn't say yes immediately. I wanted to. He was my only son, and those were my grandchildren standing on the porch, clutching stuffed animals. But I also knew the weight behind his words, the unspoken truth lingering in the air. We sat down at the kitchen table, the smell of coffee filling the silence. Finally, I asked, "What happened to your house?" Daniel rubbed his temples. "We sold it." "Sold it? Why?" He hesitated, his voice dropping. Claire thought it was the right time. The market was high. We got $620,000 for it. I turned to Claire. She didn't flinch. "It was my idea," she said firmly. "That house was too small. The neighborhood wasn't good for the kids. We needed a fresh start." "And where's the money now?" I asked quietly. Claire leaned back in her chair, her manicured nails tapping against the table. "We invested. We traveled a little. The kids needed things. It went fast. It went fast." Those 3 words lodged in my chest like ice. $620,000, more money than I had ever seen at once in my life, and it was gone in a year. Daniel wouldn't look at me. His eyes stayed fixed on the table, shame written across his face. But Claire, she looked at me with defiance, as though daring me to judge her. I swallowed hard. "So now you're here." Daniel nodded. "We just need time, Mom. Until we figure things out." That night, the house felt different. Their voices echoed in the halls, the children's laughter mixing with the clatter of boxes being unpacked. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, watching as Claire rearranged my living room, moving chairs and placing her own decorations on the shelves as though the house already belonged to her. Later, when Daniel came upstairs, I asked, "Does she really think this is temporary?" He sighed. "Mom, please don't start. She's under pressure. She wants stability for the kids." "Stability?" I said, my voice was sharp. "She spent your stability." He winced. "I know, but I can't fight her. Not now." I went to bed restless, staring at the ceiling long after the house went quiet. Memories of Robert, my late husband, flooded my mind. He had worked 2 jobs for decades, saving every penny, building this house with his own hands. And now, under my roof, a woman who had burned through $620,000 was tucking my grandchildren into bed as if nothing had happened. I told myself I could endure it for the children, for Daniel. But a quiet unease settled in my stomach. Something about Claire's composure, the way she carried herself, the glint in her eye when she looked around my home, it felt like she wasn't just passing through. She was planning something. And deep down, I feared that letting them in was the beginning of a storm I wasn't ready for. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. The first week felt like a rehearsal for a play I hadn't auditioned for. Claire began with small things, moving my salt to the far cabinet, stacking my pans in a new order, putting a whiteboard on the fridge with a schedule written in neat blue marker. 7 a.m. breakfast. 8 a.m. quiet time. 12 p.m. screens off. 6:30 p.m. lights dim. She titled it House Rhythm like we were all part of some soft wellness retreat. Under it, she wrote, "No sugar in the pantry." I found my jar of peppermint candies in the trash. On Tuesday, she hosted a mom meetup in my living room without asking. For women I'd never met sat on my couch, legs crossed, shoes still on, talking about Montessori toys and maximizing space. Claire gave it to her. She opened my linen closet and said, "This would make a great pantry." She pointed to my dining room and said, "We'll probably convert this to a study for Daniel." I stood in the doorway with a dish towel in my hands. When she noticed me, she smiled like a realtor. "Just brainstorming, Mom." After the women left, I put the dining table back where it belonged. I didn't say a word. The chairs screeched against the floor, slow and deliberate. The bills came next. My power bill, almost double. Thermostat at 76 in the day and 70 at night. The dryer running for loads that could have been hung. I said nothing the first time, nothing the second. On the third bill, I asked Daniel to walk with me to the mailbox. "Your wife likes things warm," I said. He glanced at the ground. "The kids get cold. They have sweaters." He didn't answer. His jaw moved like he was grinding down words before they became sound. That afternoon, a letter arrived with my name in bold. "You're pre-approved for a home equity line of credit." I didn't request it. Someone did. Attached to the letter was a little sticker with a code and a number to call. The envelope smelled like new ink and something else speed. I tucked it in my apron and made dinner. At the table, Claire mentioned an idea between bites of salmon. "We've been thinking about using the equity in your house," she said lightly, as if she were suggesting a movie. "Short term, to bridge us while we rebuild. The market's shifting, but Daniel has a plan." Daniel cut his food into small pieces and didn't look at me. "What plan?" I asked. He swallowed. "Some opportunities. Flips. A short-term rental. We know what we're doing now." No? As if $620,000 disappearing had been a class they finally passed. "Absolutely not," I said. Claire didn't flinch. "You don't have to be stressed about any of it. We'd handle the paperwork. You'd still live here. It's just unlocking dead money." Dead money. My husband's hands poured concrete in January winters for that dead money. "We are not using my house like an ATM," I said. "This home is paid for. It stays that way." Silence stretched long enough for the refrigerator to kick on. Claire set down her fork. "You always think small," she said softly, almost kind. "The world has changed. We're trying to help." That night, I found my wedding photo facing down on the bookshelf. The glass wasn't cracked. It was just turned. On Thursday, I came home from the grocery store and found two men measuring my living room. They wore polo shirts with a logo I didn't recognize. One held a tablet. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Estimate for built-ins," one of them said, pointing to the wall. "Your daughter-in-law scheduled us." My daughter-in-law. The words settled in my chest like a stone. I looked at the wall. It didn't need anything. It had a family calendar, school pictures, and a painting my husband liked even though I didn't. It didn't need built-ins. It needed time to be what it already was. When Daniel got home, I asked him to send the men away. He did, but not before he said they were just giving a quote. I folded the Helic letter in half and slid it across the counter to him. "Did you call?" He stared at it. "Claire did, using my name." He rubbed his forehead. "She said you'd approve it once you understood." "I understand," I said, "and I don't." That evening, I heard Claire on the phone in the guest room. The door was cracked. Her voice was low. "She'll sign once she sees the numbers. We have a notary ready. End of the month. If not, we push it to spring. Tax time motivates people." Footsteps clicked in a hall. I stepped back into the shadow of the doorway and waited until the floors stopped creaking. Friday, a package came addressed to me. Inside was a glossy folder from a bank downtown, my name stamped on the edge. "Power of attorney, draft." A yellow tab marked where to sign. A sticky note in a tidy hand. "We'll bring a notary. So easy." A smiley face. Claire put on lipstick to take the kids to the park. As she passed the kitchen, she paused. "Oh, you got the folder." Her smile was bright. "It just protects you. If anything happens, we can pay your bills without hassles." I booked the notary for next Tuesday. 5 minutes. "You won't even need to read." "I always read," I said. She tilted her head. "Of course." That night, I sat at the table with a pen and a pad of paper and made a list of the way my husband used to when something big was coming. "A call our old attorney, Mr. Keene. A freeze credit. A notify bank. No new loans without in-person approval. a change online passwords, a check title, verify no lines, a speak to Pastor Ruth about a notary I can trust, a move important papers from hall closet. At the bottom, I wrote one more line and circled it twice, record boundaries in writing. Then I added a second circle and wrote, enforce. On Saturday, Claire replaced my curtains with gauzy white panels she bought online. The room looked like a stage rental. She posted a photo on social media with a caption, making a house a home. The comments lit up with hearts. That evening, I brewed tea and waited for them to settle. When the children were asleep, I asked Daniel and Claire to sit at the table. This is my home, I said. You may stay while you rebuild. You may not spend my money, change my house, or make plans in my name. You may not bring contractors without asking. You may not speak to banks or notarize anything for me. If you try, you will leave. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. Claire kept her eyes on mine, still like a lake before a storm. Understood, I asked. Daniel nodded. Claire smiled. We hear you. The next morning, my mailbox was empty. But when I opened my email, there it was, appointment confirmation, Heritage Bank, Tuesday, 10 a.m. My name is on the subject line. Power of attorney completion. Booked by Claire's email. They had heard me. They just hadn't listened. The following Tuesday, I drove to Heritage Bank 30 minutes before the appointment listed in the email. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, but my mind was clear. I walked straight to the desk of the branch manager, a man I had known for years. Cancel any appointments under my name, I said, sliding my driver's license across the counter. Do not allow anyone, even family, to sign, notarize, or authorize on my behalf. Ever. He frowned, tapping at his keyboard. We do have a power of attorney completion scheduled this morning. Are you saying I never scheduled it? I interrupted. Cancel it now. He nodded and typed quickly. Consider it done, Mrs. Briggs. And don't worry, we'll put an alert on your profile. No changes without your physical presence. I thanked him, then sat in my car for a long while, staring at the bank's glass doors. My son and his wife weren't just careless anymore. They were crossing into fraud. When I got home, Daniel's car wasn't in the driveway. Claire was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with deliberate precision. You went out early, she said casually. Yes, I replied. I went to the bank. Her knife stopped mid-slice. I canceled the appointment you set up, I said. If you try it again, I'll call the police. She blinked, then smiled faintly. You misunderstand. I was only trying to make things easier for you. I like hard things, I said. Keeps me alive. Her smile froze, then slipped away. She turned back to the cutting board. The sound of the knife striking would echoed sharp and steadily. That evening, Daniel confronted me. Mom, why are you making this so difficult? Difficult? I asked. You and your wife tried to steal my signature. His face flushed. We weren't stealing. We were protecting you. Protecting me from what? From my own home. He rubbed his temples. You don't get it. Claire knows how to handle money. She understands opportunities. I don't want to lose her, and if I keep saying no, I will. So that was it. My son wasn't just weak, he was desperate. Afraid of losing the woman who had burned through $620,000 like pocket change. Daniel, I said softly, your father built this house brick by brick. He trusted me to guard it. I won't let anyone take that away. Not even you. For the first time, he didn't argue. He just looked at me with a sadness that was almost worse than anger. Then he left the room. But Claire didn't back down. Over the next week, she began a new campaign. Subtle, quiet, but poisonous. At dinner with neighbors, she sighed dramatically and said, it's hard when older folks don't understand modern finance. We're just trying to guide her. She rearranged my furniture again, this time taking down my husband's framed Army certificate and replacing it with a canvas print of mountains. When I asked where the certificate was, she shrugged. Basement, maybe. It didn't fit the aesthetic. And then came the whispers with the children. I overheard her one night as she tucked them into bed. Grandma's scared of change, but Mommy and Daddy will make this house better. One day, it will all be ours. The words punched through me like a cold blade. The next morning, I went to the basement to look for Robert's certificate. As I opened a dusty storage box, I found something else. The deed to the house, sealed in a manila envelope. Robert had added a handwritten note year earlier for Linda. Paid in full. No debts. No liens. I pressed the paper to my chest and whispered, "Not yet, Robert. They won't win." That night, I called Harris, the old attorney who had helped us before. I told him everything. He was silent for a moment, then said, "Bring me the deed and start documenting everything, emails, letters, conversations. If they push this any further, we'll be ready." I hung up and slid the deed into a fireproof box under my bed. When I came downstairs, Claire was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. She looked up at me with that same polished smile. "Dinner tomorrow with an investor friend. You'll love him." "No," I said. Her smile faltered. "Excuse me." I said no. No dinners. No investors. No papers. No banks. This ends tonight. For a long moment, silence hung between us. Then Claire leaned back, her voice icy. "You can't stop progress, Linda. Not forever." I met her gaze. "Maybe not. But I can stop you." That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in 30 years. And as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, I knew one thing for certain. The final confrontation was coming. And when it did, someone was going to be forced out of this house for good. The next morning, a new email sat at the top of my inbox. Mobile notary, 5 p.m. at residence. POA signing. Booked by Claire. I stared at it until the words stopped moving. Then I called Harris. "Be home at 4, he said. "Print the email. Print the bank cancellation. Print your deed. I'll bring a witness and a letter." He paused. "And Linda, call the non-emergency police line. Ask for a welfare standby. You're not starting a fight. You're preventing one." By 4 o'clock, my dining table was set for ward, deed, bank manager's note, and no changes without Linda in person. A folder labeled documented attempts with a notary email, the Halleck letter, and the investor dinner invite Claire had forgotten to cancel. Harris laid down one more paper, short, simple paragraph. Notice, permission to reside revoked if financial boundaries are violated. 14 days to vacate if further attempts occur. At 4:50 p.m., a patrol car rolled to the curb. A calm-faced officer, green, his badge red, stepped into the entryway and lowered his voice. "You asked for a standby. We'll stay outside unless you call us in." At 5:03, the door swung open. Claire walked in wearing a blazer and a bright smile. A man with a briefcase followed, mobile notary. Daniel trailed behind them, eyes on the floor. Right on time, Claire said, tone light, "Let's do this quickly." "No," I said. The notary glanced between us, already uneasy. Harris stood. "Before anything happens," he said, "please review these." He handed the notary the bank letter, the printed cancellation, and the email showing Claire had booked today in my name. "You will not be witnessing a willing signature. You will be witnessing a fraud." Claire laughed once sharp. "You can't accuse me of fraud. I'm family." "Fraud doesn't care about last names," Harris said. Officer Green stepped 1 foot inside. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The notary closed his briefcase. "I can't proceed," he said, almost apologetic. This isn't appropriate." Claire's smile cracked. "You're all being dramatic." "Daniel, tell them." Daniel opened his mouth and then shut it again. He looked tired. Older. "Claire," he said softly, "let's just what?" She spun on him. "Just keep living like this. In her museum? While opportunities pass you as by." She pointed to my table. "That deed is wasted. She's sitting on equity like a dragon on gold." I stepped forward and slid Harris's final paper across the wood. "This is the only paper that matters tonight," I said. 14 days notice if these attempts continue. You try the bank again, bring contractors again, sign my name again, and you will be leaving this house." Claire stared at the document. Her jaw tightened. "You can't evict your own family." "I can revoke permission," I said, steady. "You were guests. Guests follow house rules. This is the rule." Silence flooded the room. Then Claire laughed, a thin, cutting sound. "You think a piece of paper scares me?" Harris didn't blink. "The paper isn't to scare you. It's to introduce the judge to you." The children's feet thumped up stairs landing. Door opened. I took a breath and lowered my voice. No more scenes. Not in front of them. The notary backed toward the door. I'm leaving, he said, nodding to Officer Green. Good evening. Claire didn't move. She stared at me with a cold, clear focus I hadn't seen before. You're making a mistake, she said. Refusing help. Refusing growth. One day you'll wish you hadn't pushed us away. I didn't push, I said. I held my ground. She turned to Daniel. Say something. He ran a hand over his face. I can't. I can't do this here. For a heartbeat, I almost stepped toward him. Almost reached for the boy who used to bring me dandelions like bouquets. Instead, I stood still and let the moment pass. He had chosen his silence. I had chosen my lines. They went to their room without another word. That night, I slept for 3 hours and then woke to the sound of a drawer opening downstairs. I eased into the hallway. Moonlight split the stairwell into stripes. Claire's shadow crossed the living room. She reached for the mail tray, then for my fireproof box. I flipped on the lamp. Looking for something, I asked. She froze. I wasn't tidying. Of course, I said. Back to bed. She stared, the kind of long, measuring stare a person gives a locked door. Then she moved past me without a word. The lamp hummed in the quiet after she'd gone. In the morning, I filed Harris's letter with the court clerk. Officer Green had already logged the standby. The bank alert was in place. My credit was frozen. The pastor's notary statement sat in the folder, just in case. 3 days slid by without a word. On the 4th, an envelope arrived from Heritage Bank addressed to me, inside a copy of a recorded call. Claire's voice. Power of attorney for Linda Briggs. Yes, her schedule is tight, but we can sign for her. She's agreed, she's just not tech-savvy. The bank's red flag system had sent it to Harris automatically. We filed a report that afternoon. That evening, Daniel knocked on my door. He didn't come in. He leaned on the frame like the wood was holding him up. She went too far, he said. Yes, I said. His eyes were raw. We'll look for an apartment. All right. He swallowed. Can we have until the end of the month? You can have 2 weeks, I said gently. I'll help with boxes. Not with deposits. He nodded. Fair. On the last morning, the house was a maze of cardboard and taped plastic bins. The children hugged me like small anchors, then ran down the front walk to the car. Claire stepped outside without meeting my eyes. She adjusted a suitcase strap, fixed a strand of hair, and slid into the passenger seat. Daniel lingered. I'm sorry, he said. I believed him, and it didn't change a thing. Take care of those kids, I said, and of yourself. He nodded. You too. When the car pulled away, the street went quiet in a way it hadn't been for months. I stood at the window until the taillights disappeared, then walked into the living room and turned my wedding photo upright. I rehung Robert's Army certificate where it had been for years. The room settled back into itself, like a chest finishing a breath it had been holding too long. That night, I made tea and wrote 2 lists. The first was practical. Call the locksmith, update the will, add a clause that prevents anyone from living here longer than 30 days without written consent. Name Harris as co-trustee for the house. The second list was harder. Invite the kids for Saturdays. I keep a spare box of their crayons in the drawer. I answer if Daniel calls. I say no when I need to. When I turned out the lamp, the house didn't feel like a museum. It felt like a place that had taken a hit and stayed standing. Not because it was made of brick and beam, but because the lines were held. Love needs walls. Not to keep people out, but to keep the home from falling in. And in the quiet that followed, I realized this was never a story about money. It was about a boundary with my name on it, and the steady, stubborn choice to guard it.